Today, we're super excited to be with us. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be discussing a topic near and dear to my heart today, which is about education. And during the pandemic, many families, and probably some of you viewing today, faced remarkable challenges with having to become not only parents, but educators when the pandemic hit. And it was in that crisis that my dear friend, Tala Matchett, put her energies, resources, and time to launch Community Pods. So it was her hope that by designing a safe space for students to learn, she could relieve the burden of families who were feeling that without having their kids, have to worry about their kids. So today, we'll be talking about this innovative program, and we're going to be talking about how she inspired to find hope and inspiration during the pandemic. So before I bring Tala on, I'd like to give you a little background about her professional background. So currently, Tala is a partner at Notley, and this organization is in Austin, and it provides resources to catalyze social impact ventures and nonprofits. Over her career, she's had a successful track record in construction team management, deeply experienced at building teams to accomplish the impossible with a can-do mentality. And I know her personally, and she is definitely one of those people that is a go, and knows that there's no limit to what she can do. She started her career in risk management at Aon Risk Services and has an extensive background in operation and sales, where she applies innovative strategies to turn around and scale organization. Tala's energetic spirit fosters teamwork and a cohesive high-performance culture, and her eye on market trends keeps her teams ahead of opportunities. Her dedication to community is matched by her interest in mentorship, serving key roles as the board president of Philanthropic Pitch and co-chair of the Urban Land Institute Commercial Council. Tala earned her bachelor's in business administration from Western New Mexico University and a master's certificate in design thinking at MIT. So without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce you to Tala, the founder of Community Pods.
Hi,
Tala.
Thank you for such a nice introduction.
You're welcome. Well, and it's so nice to have you on here. I know we haven't seen each other in person for some time. 2018, 2019?
Probably 2019, fall of 2019. I'm guessing we ran into each other at some event or something. Usually I see you somewhere around town.
Out and about. Well, Tala, we just want to thank you for being here today. And I really want to talk about, in the time of the pandemic, what you inspired to do. And we're here to talk about Community Pods. And I hope a lot of you listening in, I'm sure that you are either still in this situation or have survived the situation of not only being a parent, but also having to educate your child at the same time. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what inspired Community Pods.
Yeah, Laura, I mean, I think you were one of the first people on my list to call last summer when I was sort of all wound up about this. And I just saw so many parents that had means signing their kids up for pods in their neighborhood, pods with friends, and hiring tutors. And when I looked at that, it was $1,300 a minimum per month to do some of these pods. My heart was just really with the kids and the families of hourly workers, right? We have construction workers, we have maids, we have service industry workers, and I didn't know how they would be able to afford to send their children to a pod, and they don't have the option of being virtual. A lot of us have played this hybrid game of I'm in the office here and right next to me is my child doing schoolwork, but if you don't have that option, no parent should have to choose between going to work and the education of their child. And that was really my thesis of what I went out to go find to see if we could help solve the problem. And I talked to many nonprofit organizations, and because this was new and something that we had never dealt with before, I found out that there was just, everyone was sort of scrambling, and there was this disconnect between capital and actually putting the capital to work. People were on the sidelines saying, we want to help, but how do we help and how do we get involved? And so that's really where Community Pods came from, was me just going out and calling people like Laura that would listen and asking her questions about translating things in Spanish and what were the words that didn't mean the same and didn't translate correctly, to also getting in touch with families that didn't have a resource that they could go to.
And I know I jumped right into community pods and I gave a little history about you to our audience, but I would love you to share a little bit about your personal background. And I know that we talked about this before you came on the show, like my background's education, but you come from a completely different background and what that means. Just share with us your personal journey, how you went from where you were to education and starting this adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I have no background other than I have two beautiful daughters, and I've tried to educate them and get them through school. But I have no background in education. You know, I've been on the PTA, and it just hasn't been something. My career has always been construction, construction management, leading teams, and you know, I think part of the fabric of who I am really is, again, this roll up your sleeves, and it doesn't matter if, you know about education. It matters of your network and how you can connect with your network and figure out the problem and find out what's out there. So yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about education, and I've learned a lot about partnerships and how important it is when you have a weak spot, if there is something that you're passionate about, to sort of ask your friends and family to jump in and help you where that weak spot is.
And then I know right now you're at Notley, and this is something new and a transition in your life. Do you want to share a little bit about what you do there and about the organization?
Absolutely. Yeah, so in 2019, I left my corporate job, and I just had run out of cycles. And Laura and I were just talking about this. Sometimes you just burn out and you're just ready for something different. And I took a little break. Well, little did I know what 2020 was going to be at home for us. And I joined Notley really as an executive in residence, just to learn more about what they were doing. And then in a few months, I realized, I think it was like 6 weeks, that I really wanted to be part of the organization long term. And so Dan and Lisa and the other partners asked me to become a partner. And so I've been a partner for about a year now. And what we do is we have many for-profit investments that we take, and then from there we pour them into nonprofit initiatives. So Community Pods is one of them. Philanthropitch in Austin, you may have heard of that. Beam is a fund for women, and we fund women entrepreneurs. And so we have multiple nonprofit organizations, 13 I think, in our ecosystem that we fund. And so I live squarely between the for-profit and the not-for-profit world, and how the whole engine works to, on the for-profit side, to take the profits that we make and then pour them into the nonprofit organizations.
And that's really interesting, because you ended up with this Community Pods, creating something that was from a traditional model of education to something where you're going to put students into a new space, right? But still honoring everything that happens in the academic setting. And so I'd love to kind of pivot and talk about, what do the students do in these Community Pods, and what have you learned since designing them?
Absolutely, yeah. So, the students are on the Austin ISD and Pflugerville ISD virtual learning platform. And so their day is dictated by Austin ISD and Pflugerville ISD online learning. But what we do is we make sure that we have the schedule, we understand when the student should be in class and when the student has downtime. And there are many, many different schedules. So in a classroom, we'll have, or what we call a pod, we'll have 40 kids, and each one of them will have a different schedule. And so the big thing was, how do we design a program in which the students can be on time, but also that it's not chaotic across the board for volunteers and staff. And so I love that picture of those girls. We were learning about a picnic there. And so the big thing for us is making sure that they finish 100% of their classwork. But the other part of it is surrounding the whole family. And so we do transportation, we do rent relief, and we also focus on food. So the kids get breakfast, lunch, as many snacks as they want. And then we also send home food on Fridays for over the weekend. And so that's a big piece of what we do, is really this whole family. And so it does look a little bit different than a regular Austin ISD classroom. And then, the big other, I think, component is we added a school psychologist. A lot of these children have dealt with trauma due to COVID, or just trauma in general. And so we didn't want any of our volunteers or staff members or the children to be put in harm's way because we didn't know how to deal with the trauma as a novice here, not specialized in trauma or education. And so that has been really helpful to have her help these children and help us navigate difficult situations.
Well, and Tala, I was thinking about your story and the fact that, you've done adventures and you've kind of worked in spaces of like motivating people and doing these new projects. But what is something about community pods that has made a profound impact to you? What is something that you learned about yourself through this journey?
Wow. I cry really easily when it comes to kids. It's far easier to tear up than when you're talking about a construction project or anything else. What I've learned is that in Austin, the disparity of rent problems, food scarcity issues, and access to education and transportation is far more severe than I ever could have imagined. And so that has been really eye-opening. And, we don't know where community pods will go in the future, but I do think that Notley as a whole will be committed to making sure that we're focused on what we've learned this year about the day-to-day lives of these families who live in Austin and live in a very different world than most of us.
And I'm glad you bring that up because, one of the commonalities that you and I shared when we first talked about this was our work in community engagement, that it is a tale of two cities in Austin. And it's so funny to see the thriving community, but then also areas of our community that need a lot of support. And so it's really great that you guys pitched in and you said, we're going to be here to provide an outlet to both to parents and to kids. I'm sure you have stories about how excited they were to finally kind of come together and be in these little pods together, huh?
I mean, they were so excited. I have a boy who is 5th grade, and he didn't come to us until early December. Early December, he walked through the door and his eyes just teared up because he had not been around kids since March 13th. He had been home with his mother. They had food dropped off, or she would go out. She worked, but he had not been out and has had any socialization. And now he's like the mayor of the school. He checks in on everyone and he wants to talk to everyone, and it's so engaging. And so it's so great that he can come and have a social outlet as well as stay up on his studies.
Yes. Well, and I know you shared a little bit about some of the resources that you provide to students. What about, what now are you in need of? Are you guys in need of some volunteers, or tell me a little bit about what your needs are at the community pods?
Yeah, absolutely. So we love volunteers. Fridays are asynchronous, so the children do not have Zoom calls on Fridays. So we love Friday volunteers in person. And so everyone still is wearing masks and they're still in small groups, just 2 to a table. And there's dividers in between. So it's very, very safe. We've been a very healthy school all year, which has been wonderful. So that in-person volunteer is huge. Also throughout the week, our goal for community pods is that 100% of the children are 100% complete with the 2020 and 2021 academic school year, and that we don't have anyone held back or just have incomplete work. And so that is our focus. That's our push for the next couple of months. And again, it's pre-K through 5th. And so everything, you don't have to know chemistry or physics. There's no high schoolers that'll catch you up. The other thing that we're looking for a transportation partner. We struggled with transportation all fall, and Uber was very gracious and gave us $5,000 of ride credits. We've gone through those ride credits. So we're looking for another transportation partner to come beside us and help us. Right now we're still using Uber, but we're paying for it. but the kids are unable to really make it to school without that transportation piece. And so we spend about $250 a day on transportation for the kids. But it's important that we do that because otherwise they wouldn't be able to make it to pods. And then we're always still looking for donations. We're a nonprofit organization, and we have amazing in-kind donors like Laura and her team, Cortez Consulting. But Google has come beside us and helped us, Texas Mutual, and so we've had some really great donors. But as any nonprofit, the more money that we can raise, the more services we can offer. And so one of the things that we're working on diligently right now is rent relief. We have a lot of families that are pretty severely behind from rent, and then the winter storm really affected our families, and so helping them and supporting them. Even smallest things of like moving boxes, right? And when you have to move out of a home and you didn't budget to do that, it can be very expensive to move. And so thinking about those things and continuing to talk to the families about how can we help and support really this whole family, not just the students.
Well, I'm super proud of you, Tala, for just answering the call in a way of where you had to mobilize so many resources. Here at Cafecito Chats, we always say, what are your little consejitos in this process of learning? Because I think people who listen to our show or who kind of tune in and hear what your story is about, I'm definitely one of those people that, you're career changers, but you're out there making a difference in whatever you're doing. And so I'd love to see if there's any consejitos you have for anyone who's thinking about taking a leap of faith on their own project or an idea that they have.
Yeah, I think the big thing is be passionate about it and be willing to lose sleep and be willing to be frustrated and excited. It's really hard, but it's the most meaningful work, right? At the end of the day, we started a school and we have had, nearly 100 children come through the doors of community pods in some shape or form. And it's really rewarding as much hard work as it is, I think, and that passion and what it takes to do it, it's absolutely worth it. So go out there and do it.
Well, and I think Cafecito Pod, Community Pod is kind of like one of those things that's under your belt. Like we started Cafecito just to get the word out, to make sure we highlight people who are doing amazing things like yourself and leaders in our community. Oftentimes, these are thankless jobs that we go out and do. And it's not that we're expecting anybody to notice us, but that we're doing this work. And sometimes I feel like it needs to be highlighted. And so for those of you that are tuning in and heard just about Tala's story, if you are interested in getting in touch with her, we do have some information on how you can do that. So we want to put that up. This is the website for Community Pods. And Tala, do you want to share anything on this? I don't want to take your thunder here, but share with us ways people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can click on there and just contact us, and that actually comes directly to me. We're grassroots, so if you contact us, that comes to my email. You can volunteer. We do require all of our volunteers to have a background check, which is $20. And we ask that you pay for that, but then you're ready to volunteer. And then there's always that donate button in the top right that we love to push. So
that's right. Anyone who wants to support such a great program, such a great project that's making an impact on so many families. And Tala, the last thing, is there anything that you want to sign off with? Anything you want to share with our viewers who are tuning in that maybe we didn't cover? Anything about your journey you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I just wanted to say thank you, Laura. You were honestly one of the biggest people, the first people I called. And it's wonderful to be able to have a network where you can pick up the phone and say, I know we haven't talked in a year, but I need your thoughts on this. And so Cortez Consulting has been amazing through this whole process and helping us just the little things that we needed, because we need friends to help us. And so I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for allowing your team to help me make this a reality. So it takes a village.
Yes, it does. And we're so happy that you put the trust in us to do this work. So again, Tala, we thank you for spending this little time with us today for Cafecito Chats. And again, anybody who wants to get in touch with her, we put her website in the contact information. And so thank you very much, Tala, for your time today. And for anyone who's tuning in that wants to share some of the work that they're doing, we're always looking for guests to be on Cafecito Chats, or there's someone that you know in the community that's doing some great work. You know how to get in touch with us. We have a interest form for Cafecito Chats. We have a couple of comments coming in. We actually put on there our Cafecito Chats interest form. So if you guys are interested in nominating someone or being on our show, please do so. And then again, if you want to follow us on social media, these are all the areas in which you can see what we're doing. We do have a YouTube page, so if you want to subscribe to Cafecito Chats, keep in touch with all of our guests we're bringing on. And speaking of our next guests, we are having our next Cafecito. We have launched once a month, so save the date for May 12th. We'll be having our Cafecito Chats before we go for summer break. So again, thank you guys for everything that you're doing out there, for continuing to support our work, for tuning in, and for listening today to the amazing story of Tala and all the great work she's doing in the Austin community. Have a great evening. Thank you guys for tuning in.